I know that a lot of my community really boycotted and wanted to cancel Dave Chappelle, but I really kind of liked what Dave Chappelle
Thank
said.
you. Thank you. I'm
I
so
loved
glad
what
you
he
said that.
said, man,
Yeah,
because it's so true.
it is.
You're standing next to the 6 foot tall woman who, what's more confusing? And it makes no sense. And I loved what Dave Chappelle said. I actually felt like he was an advocate,
Yeah,
you know,
and I
and
think
by saying that.
I think it's that spectrum of, we were talking about asshole spectrum and predator spectrums and all that
Yeah.
kind of thing. There's also the spectrum of how should I say this? Of when you're left leaning, right? Like, yeah, I'm a liberal person that all for everybody's rights, but
Mm-hmm.
there's a too far when it comes to who you're trying to cancel or why. The
Right.
things that Dave
Right.
Chappelle is saying are profound, and he says them
Yes.
because he's getting your attention because he wants you to listen to it.
Right.
The more he talks about it, the more voices he is given to it.
Right.
And and you don't, and if you're not seeing that, and you got to watch his entire hour for
The
context.
whole thing.
Don't
Yeah.
just watch the 4 minute clip that you're gonna hate and you're being told to look at this and hate this 4 minutes,
Right.
but don't watch the
Right.
full hour of why. And
Right.
and you don't,
Right.
if you don't understand the plight of what he's dealing with as an African American man,
Right.
and comparing it to trans and how you can get rights a lot faster and a lot quicker, and you can get people behind you and you can get senators behind you faster for
Yes.
your trans rights and LGBTQ. He doesn't have the LGBTQIA because if you say Black
Right.
Lives Matter, you say that's a fucking Antifa. You know what
Right.
I mean? But you
Right.
say you say
Right.
LGBTQ and they're not saying Antifa. And
Right.
so he makes
Right.
a point.
He
He
does.
makes a valid point, and you have to give him a chance to explain it.
Right.
He is somebody who chooses his words extremely wisely. He is
Yes.
one of the
He
most the
was.
I'm into writers. I'm into comedians.
Hmm.
I was a he's right here, dude. That's Chappelle right here. He's on my Mount Rushmore of
I
comedians.
love
That's
Chappelle.
Seinfeld, George Carlin,
I see Carlin.
Seinfeld, Pryor, and
I see.
Chappelle.
Okay, that's Pryor. All
Yeah.
right.
Those are
Yeah.
my four of my Mount Rushmore, right?
Yeah,
And
man.
all of them, they cared about storytelling, but they also cared about how they said their words. George
Yeah.
Carlin cared about words. We know this. Seinfeld is so particular with his words. Chappelle and Pryor just a storyteller, but Chappelle,
Yeah.
he
It's an art.
chooses his words wisely. He just won the Mark Twain Award. You don't just win that shit.
Yeah, yeah, and I want to tell you, I love Dave Chappelle also in that is that Dave Chappelle gave us an amazing insight into the cis male like mind, like how it's seen from somebody who's not in the body. And I think that that's valuable. And before I did a whole show on my transgender mentor platform on cancel culture and have we gone too far is because the
I
reason
appreciate that so much.
well the reason that I even wanted to do transgender mentor is because a lot of the times people don't stop and hear what we have to say, or allies don't step out because they're so fucking scared to say the wrong thing, because it takes 1 second. And I know this because when I first started transitioning, I was going to a support group in my town in Wilmington. And dude, after like time 3, I was so nervous because, I use the word guys a lot. And I'm sitting in a room full of male to female people transitioning, and I say, I love you guys. And all of a sudden I'm attacked. It's like, holy shit, I'm too nervous to go. And we
Yeah,
can't be like that, man.
you have to understand, you have to listen to people because it's not what they're saying, it's how they're saying it. If
Mm,
they're misgendering you, but they're doing it in a sense, if you're listening to how they're misgendering you though, if
yes.
it's your parents misgendering you, yeah, they're probably doing it with an affliction to upset you
Right.
and strike a nerve.
Right.
But if it's
Right.
somebody who is your friend and they misgendered you, but they're talking really fast and they're telling a story, they're probably excited and they're probably not meaning to, and that's just how they always told the story with her
Yeah.
in it.
Yeah.
And so just give them a break.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
are trying. The allies are
Absolutely.
trying,
Yeah.
and you can
Absolutely.
hear that. So if as long as you're listening for it, And that's
Yes,
the thing that I like to talk about, at least at our meetings, is like, listen for how we're talking.
absolutely.
Listen to how people are talking to you. If they're
Yes,
misgender, if they're pronouns or whatever, and it just they're making you uncomfortable, but it's if they're how they're saying it can't be what they're saying. You have to
right,
give them a break, and
right.
because a lot of people, they're trying their best and they
They
don't
are.
know,
They are, and we don't want to alienate people. And it's just like race relations. It's not going to change
which is what
because
Chappelle
of
said.
us.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's not going to change because of us. It's going to change because of the allies. The allies continue to stand up and make their peers feel safer and more, at
And
ease
he
about it.
and he knows more about that, than anybody else. Chappelle, the power of allies, because this is the last thing I'll say about Chappelle is, last November, not this past one before. I think it was 2020, right? When it's
Hmm.
so crazy. I think that was a year and a half ago, right?
Yeah, I know,
But
right?
anyway, so that November, Chappelle found out that his show was streaming on all these platforms, Chappelle show, and he
Hmm.
wasn't seeing a dime for it because he made that deal when he was
Yeah,
18 years old with
yeah,
Viacom.
yeah,
So he didn't own the rights to that show. When they sold it to Netflix and the Hulu and the Amazon, he's not seeing money for that.
yeah,
So what he did was he called up Netflix, who made all of his specials, and said, "Hey, this makes me feel bad. Can you take this down? They're not paying me."
yeah,
And Ted Sarandon said, "Yeah, man, I got you," and took it down because he wants that relationship.
yeah,
Everybody else though told him, "No, we didn't make this deal with you. We made it with Viacom. Talk to
yeah,
them."
yeah,
And so he called Viacom. He goes, "Hey, you guys aren't the people that made me that deal." And they said, "Yeah, we're not. So sorry about your luck, but we're not doing anything." So
yeah,
Chappelle said, "I'm coming to you guys." And he put out a 10-minute YouTube video and he put it on his Instagram for 10 minutes. And you watched it and it was saying, "Hey, this is a plea to all my fans. Don't watch my show. They
yeah.
will not, don't
Yes,
watch
I
my
remember
show.
that.
And
Yes.
then I will let you know if they come to me, and when they make a deal, I will tell you when to watch it." And everyone
Yes.
stopped watching. And then 4 months
Yep.
later, he got paid, and he said, "Hey guys, I got paid. Watch my show again. It's on these platforms." It's like
Yep.
he knows the
Yep.
power is
He
inside of the
does.
people that out there and not inside the suits in the office. And that's a
Right.
very creative, innovative thinker to think that
Very.
way.
It's a very wise thing. And one of the things that I really, really, so, last year I began to really go through a lot of personal issues and I was dealing with a lot of hate on the internet. And like I said, my platform had grown, to be rather large and it looked like the dream was coming true. But at the same time, I was going through all these personal changes and I thought about Dave Chappelle. When Dave Chappelle walked away, from his show at the pinnacle of its success with the biggest offer that had ever been made in television, but yet he was going through these personal, I found strength in that. And so I walked away. Like I stepped away because while my personal life was falling apart, I found myself like happens and like I said in a last night's episode of my show, it's a human being. It's not a bad person thing when the ego stands up and starts to take control of this. It happens very sneaky. You're going through some shit over here, and us as content creators, we begin to find our worth when we're not feeling important. We can feel important when we feel likes and hearts and those things. And I started finding that I was more dependent upon that and I didn't feel like people were getting the best of me. And I needed to honor this healing that was trying to take place in my life. And I needed to show myself that I could do this and do it authentic, that I could back away from that platform, handle what I needed to handle, go through that healing, and then come back. And people said I was crazy because it's like I'm starting over from scratch now, but I'm starting from a place of pure authenticity. So I really love Dave Chappelle for that. I understand that. And I mean, like, I love him like I do.
Yeah.
He's a mentor,
Yeah, that
a lot
is.
of
I
ways.
really, I respect